Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
Looking for small business consulting? Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to book a session with us. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Paradigm Playbook. I'm your host, Dave Kozak, alongside my co-host, Mr. Steve Cook.
Good morning, David.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. It was a good week. I was at boot camp in Cincinnati, and I was at IACDP in Puerto Rico, and it's good to be home.
Yeah. Speaking, traveling, you're like a man about town.
Yeah, mostly learning.
Mostly learning. All right.
It was good.
Hey, that's what this is all about, right?
Yep. And sharing.
So we thought we'd talk about a subject that has sort of hit, I think, both of us, Steve, in different ways currently that if we're feeling it, then other people are certainly feeling it, which is the idea behind intentional growth. Growing on purpose is another way to say it. And, you know, we've talked about goal setting. We've talked about scalability. We've talked about management, hiring, firing. We've hit a lot of business subjects, but the concept of intentional growth is, I think it takes many tones, right? I don't think it's a singular subject matter. Just as an example, you can decide that, hey, I'm going to put more hours in, and you can grow that way. Mm-hmm. Right. In the sports business, you're going to run another class and grow that way. But I think there's a real critical thinking nature of intentional growth. Right.
I think one of the keys, and, you know, when you suggested the topic, where I went with this was more on the word intentional. Yeah. So I'm in my mind eliminating I've got 2 pickleball courts. All of a sudden it becomes popular and I grow. So to me, that's accidental growth and different from intentional growth. So the whole thing centers around mindset. And so if you have a growth mindset, then that's where your thinking is going every day for every reason. You know, you're thinking of what can I do to make this better or bigger? Mm-hmm. And if it's bigger, it's got to be better. And if it's better, it's got to be bigger.
Well, I mean, I think you can grow differently too, right? You can grow through reduction.
Absolutely.
You can grow through multiplication. You can grow through expansion. You can grow through adding different services and offerings. So like the part that really hit Steve when we were prepping for this to me was opportunity is everywhere, right? And opportunity for growth. If you seek it, you will find it. The big question is, how do you make it intentional, right? And there's the old adage that opportunity knocks and you got to take advantage of it. What I've found is that just when one opportunity knocks, so too do 5 others. And it's not, and I don't like the phrase opportunity knocks. I like the phrase that if you seek opportunity, you will find opportunity, right? It is something you have to be motivated towards. Sometimes, serendipitously, things will happen. But more often than not, when you seek the growth or when you seek the opportunity, you will find the opportunity or create it in your own right.
Yeah, I think Jason Selk calls it expectancy theory. Yeah. And it's like, okay, like I'm expecting this is going to get better. I'm expecting to get a new client. It's, I find this in consulting. I mean, it's been odd over the last 6 months. I finish and I'm consulting for 3 to 6 months with a specific client. And, I close the books on one and the phone seems to ring and it's filling that slot, which I've come to expect now. But I think you can expect that if you're doing the groundwork that's going to foster it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's talk about the intentional side of things for a minute, Steve, because we've also laid some tools out that we've given people in the past, or some tools that we've used to sort of manage it. But what growth, to an extent, is, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's a natural progression, right?
But it can also be natural to grow in the wrong way. And we see it in sports where, the theory is to grow, I need a bigger building, or I need a second location. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's exactly where we're going with this. I think you can grow by, a change in customer base. You can grow by a change in pay structure. You can. So the simplest one that I go through all the time, and this is with basketball. Mm-hmm. So if you're running 5-on-5 basketball and your facility's full, the easiest growth is to go to 3-on-3 basketball. And 3-on-3 increases your business if you fill up the same amount of time by 20%. So it's very, very simple math to say, how can we grow? And that's just growth through programming changes. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing, let's say a problem that we sometimes have at Grand Slam, if you're very high on private lesson side of it, if you switch that to 2-on-1 training where you have two athletes, one coach, and fill the same number of hours, technically at the same price, you double your income. So there's a different ways to grow. And you may have to cut the take to grow the ratio, but you can grow through ratio.
Well, and I'll use a different example in our business. 2020, we had 3 office locations. We were expanding footprint and we were reaching further. COVID comes. And we're like, well, why do we have 3 office spaces? Nobody can come in person anyway, so let's go to virtual. And so you have a technological growth in the virtual meeting capabilities simultaneously with a reduction of ability of people to actually come into the office. And so now, oddly enough, we expanded into three counties in Pennsylvania. Now we're in 50 states. Through the exponential growth of technology,
which started by reduction.
Which started by the reduction of footprint.
Yes, I mean it's fascinating, and I think sometimes you get caught up in incremental growth.
Yes,
and you lose the vision of the big picture. And sometimes,
and I think that's the huge point too.
Okay, so having that vision out there, where you want to go. So, we had this discussion yesterday, and I know you're in a dilemma state now. Yep. In terms of hiring, and do I put on another salesman? Do I add another salesman? Or do we partner with another business and bring on 30 new salesmen?
Correct.
So it's and I guess it all ties to vision. And I guess the second thing would be maybe risk tolerance.
Yeah, risk tolerance, willingness to put in the work, like huge change. And in my dilemma, right, it's, do I hire one and add a 20% bottom line growth, or do I add 30 and add 100% bottom line growth? Right, it seems like a no brainer from a financial standpoint, but then I need to reinvent how I do business today to train 30 people as opposed to one person. And I need to have systems that are capable of 30 people as opposed to one person. And so the big point that I'll make is, if you always have that vision out there as to what is possible, and you're going through the incremental growth, and I want a 15% increase in sales this year. I want a 20% increase, and I want to grow year over year. At some point, you probably have to be having a different growth conversation about scalability of it, right?
I just went through Grant Cardone's 10X Academy. It was a virtual event. I found it very interesting. And he spends a lot of time differentiating between growth and scaling.
Without question.
And the 10X number is a number that has become popular in a business sense, in that it signifies that you're a big thinker. I think so. I'm not going to say one is right and one's wrong. So,
no, certainly not.
10% growth per year for 20 years is great. 10xing in 1 year is also great. It's different.
100% different.
Both grow. So the one thing that I will stand true to is that no growth is backslipping. So
yeah, and there's
it's not acceptable to not grow. Even if you grow, and we go back to the 11 Madison Avenue and unreasonable hospitality, that was growth in a whole different way.
Yep.
And so, the way 11 Madison Avenue grew was by expanding their hospitality brand and then charging 10x times for what they're serving.
And that's a huge point I want to make, right? I made a comment to my mom, actually this morning, I think. I said, if my ambition would just chill out a little bit, I could just be happy and satisfied doing what I do daily. And of course, my dad chimes in and says, well, why don't you find another volunteer coaching opportunity and fill your time up more?
Smart ass, huh?
Yeah, giant smart ass. Chip off the old block there, though. So in my world, in the finance and the college and everything we do, as many clients as I sit down with is there's a cap to it though, right? I can only do so much. So then you multiply yourself and you start doing, okay, so now I can meet 3 times as many people and but if I reduce down, the cap is real, right? Meaning if I reduce staff and it was going to be Dave Kozak and associates, and I just had an assistant or a secretary and a case design team that maybe was a person or two, right? Overhead would be a lot less, but end result also is a lot less. And I can't live in that world. I can't live without that growth target. I can't live without that 10x mentality. It just doesn't.
And that's a personality trait that, I think, you're lucky enough to have, or you're stuck with, depending on how you want to look at it. But I also think that if you're not thinking that way, and if you talk yourself into, I can just do this and lead a good life. My experience tells me you won't.
Yeah,
you will backslide, because if you're not forcing to get grow or get bigger, you're not
get better even.
Yeah, you're not doing what's necessary to bring in new customers. And there's a natural attrition to every business.
100%.
People die, people leave, people move, people change their mind, people don't like you. There's a lot of attrition that happens. And if for no other reason, you have to improve or scale just to backfill what you're losing.
Yeah.
So I think that's key.
Well, and there's this other phrase I call the most dangerous. I think it's 5 words. We've always done it this way.
Yeah.
And to me, that is like the antithesis of growth. It's just a bad outlook. And so one of the things that becomes very difficult in the growing on purpose or intentional growth is the fear of change, right? And the fear of the unknown in that change. And that's where I think, Steve, you brought up the risk piece of it. Like, what's your risk tolerance for change and things like that? But, one of my other favorite quotes is from James Penny, which is ironic because J.C. Penney no longer exists, but change is vital and improvement is the logical form of change. So if you're not constantly improving and refining what you're doing, you're not having that incremental growth. But then if you're not looking at different ways to do things, you're not putting yourself in a position to have that intentional growth. Right? You actually should be trying to break what you do.
Yeah, and I got great advice. As you know, we bought Grand Slam 20 years ago. And, the one piece of advice from the former owner that has stuck with me is said, reinvent part of your space every 2 years. And, it's been great. We've added so many things because of that, from miniature golf to multi-ball to Ninja to, all these different things that we've added, which required us at some point to stop something. And sometimes the deletion of something is what's necessary to make the space for something that's bigger. And that's with the space in the building, the space in your staff, or the space in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you're so, we do this way, we sell this product over and over and over and over again. And this opportunity is sitting there waiting for you to open the door. But until you back off this, Patrick Bet-David said that, when he became a specialist, and I don't know enough about insurance company, but I think he became was he a life insurance guy? I think he's a life insurance guy, but he stopped selling car insurance or homeowners insurance and just said, okay, we're only doing life. Here's our thing. We're going to be, driven by a diverse team. And I think he has the largest insurance sales team of over 3,500 salespeople for any insurance company, but it's in one, and he couldn't do that until he got rid of some things, made space for it. So, I think there's, tons of ways to grow that are better than a bigger facility or a fuller facility. And maybe the one is the easiest one. How do you increase the value that you're selling? So what your time's worth, what your space worth, or what your service is worth. How can you?
Thank you for listening. Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to discover how we can support you and your business. Well, that was sort of my point in going, if I didn't have the ambition, right, I could just throttle back and I could meet more people, or I could throttle back and meet the same amount of people and charge more for every person, right? And that's still growth by reduction and multiplication at the same time. But the intentional growth that I seek is, because I believe in the products that we have and I believe in the way we do things, it's a message that needs to be spread. So I believe in the mission of the company, which then incentivizes and motivates me to go spread that mission more and to scream it from the mountains. And so I can't just put the genie back in the bottle and say, hey, more people don't need to focus on college. No, I think they do. And so it creates this, progress. And to me, progress is very motivating. A little bit of progress in many areas is very motivating to what the next level is. And so I think one of the nuggets, the golden nuggets of the advice you received in acquiring Grand Slam is that by forcing that change on yourself and your company every 2 years, you are forcing the actual look at what you're doing and can you do it better and what other things are out there to do. And those golden nuggets, or that intentional, it forces that intentional look at growth and expansion.
At the boot camp I went to, one of the interesting sessions that Jeff Metzger runs the boot camp. For those in the gymnastics world, check out boot camp. I mean, awesome. It's a 5-day workshop. It's intense. Head down for 5 days. It's fun. But one of the things that exercise he did is he pulled up his graveyard and he's, got everybody, get out a sheet of paper, we're going to create your graveyard. And he says, tell me about, the programs, the ideas that you tried and failed, or tried and closed down, and tried and stopped. And he has a magnificent facility on 30 acres and 85,000 square feet. I mean, it's magnificent, and 67 items on his graveyard list. I thought that, wow, that's it. And then I started thinking, we've tried some things at Grand Slam that, we did a skate park, didn't go so well. I've talked about that on the podcast before. We had Bowlingo. We've tried team building. We've tried a lot of different things, and you settle on things. But the way to growth is by trying multiple things. Some things I should have thought through better, but sometimes you gotta try stuff and see where it goes.
Well, I mean, and then timing has a lot to do with it as well. Like, if you right idea, wrong time, right? Well, I've been a victim of that one on several occasions, where we're ahead of the curve and then we put it to bed, and then the curve catches up, and all of a sudden we're like, well, we were already doing that, And
sometimes, my son probably doesn't listen to all our podcasts, so I can say this out loud, but he a lot of times outthinks me. And So, we're trying to fill a certain space in the facility right now, trying to come up with ideas. So I ask everybody's ideas. And Dan said, and this is kind of prophetic, that clear the space out, the opportunity will show up. And it's just like, it's hard to fill a space that's not empty. And this was kind of a brain thing for me, saying, is that really what I have to do? I have to, it's like, if you have a room in your house that's overcrowded, empty it out and you'll envision something in there. And I think in business world, if you are studying, I talk about return on square foot all the time. And if you know the return on square foot, whatever is returning the lowest square foot return is questionable for next year, or it should be. Mm-hmm. So that's what, in this space, and the space, it's been a pro shop, a closet, the green room, which was a party room. It's been an office. It's been a parents' lounge. It's been
probably a dozen things.
Yeah, baseball card shop. It's been all kinds of things. And right now, it needs to be cleaned out so I can see an opportunity in there.
Mm-hmm. That's funny too, because if you think about just the standard cleaning that I know everybody has done is their garage.
Yeah.
And the only way, in my opinion, to truly clean a garage is everything goes out to the driveway and you put stuff back in an organized fashion and you end up with a pile of stuff. You're like, I haven't moved this in 15 years. Why do I still have it? And it becomes the donate or the giveaway or the throwaway. And so I think there's great benefit to that. And I'll also talk about offices, right? I've moved 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our 6th office, right? And every time that we move an office, there is a clear out of what is truly done. Mm-hmm. But there's also a rebirth of things that we used to do that why did we ever stop this? You come across the pamphlet or the booklet or the brochure or the thing that you did, and that cleansing can reinvigorate things that didn't work. And I think that's the point of the graveyard, right? What are those 67 things? Is there any of them that we should give a different go, or we learned a lesson, but we can do it better, or we have the time?
Or maybe now the timing's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that happens. And, it could be that my skate park idea, wasn't right at the right time. And some of those things in the graveyard are, euthanasia. We killed them on purpose because we found another opportunity. One of the great exercises that I think this was a Grant Cardone one. He said, you have whatever your business is, you have 300 customers that are bringing in $100,000 and you want to double that business. So the natural thing is I can double my price or I can double my customers. Mm-hmm. And he says, or you can identify 10% of your customers that will pay 10 times what you're charging them if you upgrade the service.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, in the same thing with the same customer base, you've doubled your business. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole different way of looking at it. Gary V, I won't stand behind his language, but he's a funny guy and he's very intuitive. And he's the one who figured out how to use social media to sell. He's really been brilliant at that. But, one of his stories is the $1,000 bottle of wine that his dad would not inventory, and now is the mainstay, one of his best sellers. I mean, it's the same thing. You need something at that high level. Even if you're in a service industry, it's that special service that certain people get at certain hotels, and people that they pay a lot of money. It's just sitting in first class. There is a group of people that, regardless of what the cost, they're going to pay first class, and they're going to travel in first. Is that you, Dave? Is that you won't ride coach? Okay, I'm not going to say
I will ride coach.
I'm not going there, but I'm just saying, if that customer is in your wheelhouse, but you're not offering that service.
Yeah.
That's a simple path to growth.
Yeah. I'll have the example of my landscaper is not inexpensive, but the program that he and I have worked out is basically you handle everything. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have a quote. I don't want to have a conversation. I don't want to have to meet someone. I want my property to look absolutely flawless at all times, because you never know when I'm having a party or when people are coming over. I don't want to have to plan to have people around, right? And call them and say, hey, can you make sure the weeds are good? No, weed every week. I don't want to see it. And I pay a little extra for that, right? Maybe I pay a lot extra for that, whatever. My neighbors are constantly complimenting the landscaping around my house. And so to the point where my neighbors call up my landscaper and they're like, and they can't do it. And they won't do it. They don't see the value in it. To me, the value is I never have to worry about it. I can always instantly, we can go to a softball tournament and I can say, hey, pool party at my house when everybody's done. Let's go. Come on back. And it's completely flawless. I never have to worry about that. Right. And so there's a value that I'm willing to pay to never have that. And I will pay more than what other people would pay for landscaping.
So, and what that requires of your landscaper, really, it requires nothing above what he's charging you for anyway, because he's just going to charge you more. Yep. So it requires him to drive down your street a couple extra times a week.
Bingo.
And that's it. You just have to make yourself aware of that opportunity. And as soon as he figured that out, and I don't know whether you were his first or not, but as soon as he figured it out, that became part of his offering. Do you want the concierge service, landscaping?
He calls it the platinum service.
Okay, so that's it.
Yes, I do.
So now that's the 10X customer. And that's what's going to take you over the top.
And here's what he did that is brilliant. He's got his mower crews that go out and mow for the silver and the gold package, right? I just happen to be platinum. And then he's got a second crew that does yard cleanups and mulching and all that. And so when the mulching ceases in the spring, that crew goes they follow the lawn crews around for the platinum. So I'll have one crew show up, they'll mow the lawn, do everything. And then that afternoon, the next crew shows up, cleans everything, pulls all the weeds, makes sure all the beds are tight and right and move along. And so it was twofold purpose. Get a little more income into his company, but also keep that crew aligned with so to me, it's a brilliant thing. And then again, I said the first time I paid someone to cut my lawn, it was the best $50 that I had ever spent, because I didn't have to worry about it. We were traveling and I never looked back. And for some people, that is their peace. That's what they want to do. That's where they feel. And to me, that is not where I get peace. I get peace when I'm coaching my kids or when I'm coaching softball, baseball, and other teams. So I'd rather spend my time doing that than rushing home after work to make sure I can cut the lawn, get to the thing. So again, different strokes for different folks. But the idea behind it is, if you find the right people, your tribe, as we've talked about before, intentional growth is very easy. If you're servicing the wrong people or you don't have the right clientele, then intentional growth can be difficult.
Yeah, and I think if once you make the commitment that I'm worth more than I'm paying for that lawn service, and I'm not at the platinum level, but I am at one who doesn't cut his own grass. All of a sudden, it's like you don't think about it; you make room in it. So I'd rather have, So this is a simple example, but I'd rather have someone cut my grass and I drink $2 coffee than cut it myself and drink $5 coffee. So, it's all about choices that you make. Everybody's, choosing something over another. Some it's fancy coffee and some it's, it's like one of the luxuries that I don't park in remote parking at the airport. I know a lot of people park for half the price, but when I want to get home, I want to get home. So I don't do this. So there are things I pay for, but there's things that then I source out. And in the business, I think too often, we're going to do a podcast sometime when this doesn't come up, but I'm going to bring it up again. Sometimes you get so busy running your business that you don't have time to grow it. Yeah. And I think there's that time. I forget what book was it where the guy says you got to invest in time for people to look out the window. And, it's the daydreaming part of the job where that's where people are going to come up with ideas. It's a creative way to look at things so that will grow your business in the future. It's Tony Shea of Zappos, saw customers or employees partying in the back, and the phone rang, and the one stopped and answered the phone with such enthusiasm. Tony said, "Why don't we always answer the phone that way?" And it's because we're not putting people in that happy mindset, so they're not there and they can't flip it on. So creating the culture of this, whether it's creativity or happiness or whatever, it comes through when you need it if you encourage it. And that's why, and get back to growth, if everybody knows your vision, then somebody will come up with the ideas to help you grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody, and I'm not just saying employees, I'm saying
external,
customers,
internal, all around.
Yeah, Grand Slam has grown because of things you've told us, not when you were working there, but when you were a customer that, hey, if you did this, or I'd pay more to have more space. Okay, we figured it out.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So anyway, there's tons of ways to grow. But again, it starts with doing it intentionally.
Yeah, and that's huge. If the takeaway is, am I doing this intentionally, or am I doing this circumstantially, or am I doing this just because? The intentional side is, it simply means you're going to have to put the time, thought, effort, and energy into it to make sure that it's the direction you want to go. And I think that's the key. So anyway, I know we're out of time. We could talk all day on this stuff, per usual, but, if you guys like this, please absolutely subscribe, and share the podcast. Check us out online. Also, we'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the subjects we talk about. So if you've got a story about intentional growth, ping us.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear it. Thank you, everyone. Make it a great day.
Do you want your business to thrive? Visit us at ParadigmPlaybook.com and contact us today for expert assistance.